Moments lost.
Moments lost?
Moments lost. We're not driving by there anymore.
But it was the Social Security building you were talking about.
I told you about it. Want me to tell a story about the time somebody shot a vial of acid down my throat?
Yeah.
Okay. You ever meet Monty Baumgartner?
Yeah.
Remember him?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
You remember him? Ninja B, we used to call him. Yeah, well, we ended up getting an apartment in Portland, and we were selling acid. Pretty much that's how we got the money for the apartment, was selling acid. And so I would hitchhike down to Eugene, and I would get vials of liquid or acid in sheets. And so that's basically how we get money, is that I was going down getting vials, and I was getting vials for $40, and a vial would hold like 144 drops of acid. I would suck a whole vial up into a big 3cc syringe because it was easier to dispense that way. And one morning, I went and we're like, let's go sell us acid. We're selling two drops for $5. And 2 drops got you higher than shit. Like, it was really, really strong, potent acid. And ended up sucking this whole vial, 144 drops, into a syringe. I put the yellow cap on it, put it in my jacket, and the very first stop was these 2 like hicks that we sold acid before. They were like 17, 18. They were like a year or 2 older than us. And they had an apartment near where Mom and Dad lived in Portland. They lived right down the street. Remember Mom and Dad lived in Portland? Anyways, so they had this apartment, and when we first gave them acid, how we ran into them is we were running around selling acid in the park next to Mom and Dad's. There was these 2 guys wearing camouflage, and they were sparring. And they were like, oh, getting into it. And one of them started talking to us, bummed a cigarette or something. And Monty asked me, you guys do acid? And we're like, hell yeah. And we sold them some blotter. It was on paper, right? We sold them a few hits each. They had a blast, and so every once in a while, they would call us up asking for acid, right? Well, so we're like, they're trying to make some money up to pay rent. We go to their apartment, knock on the door, and there's the 2 of them in there, and we're like, hey, you guys want to buy some acid? And they're like, hell yeah. It's early in the morning. We're like, all right, and show it to them, and show it's liquid. And they're like, oh, we've never done liquid before. And the one guy, the guy that was the older and big guy, he was like the alpha male. And he was like, they were both terrors. Like, they wore camouflage, had giant K-bar knives, and they would do kung fu sparring. They like to, wear these berets. They're this total fucking hillbilly militia people. So the big alpha male is all, wait a second, how do we know that's real acid? I'm like, we'll sit around here and we'll wait until you guys are high, because you still want to strip us off. So I try and talk him out of getting 2 drops each, because the stuff is so strong that everybody else that took 2 drops was just go out of their mind, right? So like, you guys why don't you just get 1 drop each? And the guy insisted on getting 2 drops each, right? He gave us $10. We gave him 2 drops each. And after about half an hour, we're sitting in the living room waiting for them to get high, and they're in the back room sparring. They're like, oh yeah, and doing their kung fu and shit. And me and mine are sitting there and just waiting for it. All of a sudden we hear screaming. The little guy, the little sidekick guy is screaming, ah, you cut me. And we're like, oh shit. We look back, and the guy's holding his hand like this, and blood is just pouring all over the carpet. And we stood up and we're like, you guys are fucking high, right? We're out of here. We start walking for the door, and a fucking spear goes over my head and sticks in the door. Boom! From across the room. Like shit. And the big guy comes running out holding a knife, said, "You guys fucking poisonous, right?" And I'm like, "What?" He's like, "I almost killed my friend. You guys poisonous." I'm like, "No, this totally is good acid." And we're saying, "You guys are just high, you know, you fucking cause, you know, no, you poison us." And in this fucking moment, I had to prove to him it wasn't poison, right? So I took this fucking full syringe out of my jacket, and I went and I took the cap off and went, "Look, it's not poison." And I went to put a few drops in my mouth, and he grabbed it and just squirted the whole thing down my throat, fucking back of my nose, you know, it was coming out my nose, and I was like, "Oh fuck." And I wasn't really that panicked about doing so much, but Monty looked at him. He's all, "You just killed my best friend, man. That was 140 drops of acid you just gave him." And I'd done lots of acid before, and I don't, you know, I really don't remember if I was terrified or not, but Monty was like, "We gotta go to the hospital." At that point, the big guy, like, sobered up for a second. He looked, he's like, "Oh, you guys can go." Right? And so we leave. And the whole way back to our apartment, Monty was trying to talk me into going to the hospital. I was like, no, this is really clean acid. I'll be all right, you know. And he's like, "No, we got to go to the hospital." But I wouldn't go. We got back to our apartment. Our apartment had nothing but milk crates and a stereo. We didn't have any furniture, nothing in the living room. And so I sat down. The first thing I started doing is started playing with the radio, and that's all I remember was the AM radio. You know, it goes, I was making these crazy noises and laughing, and Monty went into his room. Now, here's another thing. Monty had this thing whenever he was on acid, which he was on acid too. He'd get really paranoid, and he had a few bad trips where he thought vampires were trying to get him. So I've been watching him for the first week we were in there. He would disappear, and he would come back with these socks full of garlic, you know, those garlic, you know, fucking things. And he went and fucking staple gunned them all over his room, and from the ceiling he had garlic. And he wouldn't come out of his room. I remember him opening the door every once in a while, and open his door, and I'd see a bunch of garlic there. And he'd be like, "Josh, you okay? You don't want to go to the hospital?" I'd be like, "No, I'm fine." He said for fucking, he said for 3 days I sat in one spot. He said he'd come out, and either I'd be playing with the radio laughing hysterically, or I'd be laying on my back with my eyes open. He'd come up and he would talk to me, and I don't remember any of it, right? And he said that he would talk to me and I wouldn't respond, and he'd go back in his room and he'd come back out and make sure I was breathing. And for 3 days, the only memory I have of any of it was his door opening and me like thinking in my head, "He thinks I'm a vampire," and fucking, he was afraid to come out of his room. Just seeing garlic hanging from the door. And after 3 days, apparently I got up and I remember it getting dark, and then it was light out, and it was dark out, and then it was light out, like quick motion, like the sun went up, the sun came down. It was just, that's all I remember from the trip. But after 3 days, I apparently got up and I went and I crashed out for a few days in my room, and I was fine.
Wow.
But of course, I started having bad trips after that, and that was kind of the end of my LSD. I started having bad trips, thinking that I was going to lose control of my body, which is kind of ironic since, I mean, I guess possibly, I mean, I was catatonic and I don't remember it, but something makes me think that even if I wanted to move, I couldn't move. I think that I was fucking, like, literally catatonic. And he said that I laid in the same spot for hours. I would not move. And when I finally got mobility again, I just go back to the radio. So every trip after that was this fear of losing control of my body. I used to do a lot of acid.
Yeah.
Got my acid story.
Yeah, that was cool. Put that on Brother Barnes.
Brothers Barnes LSD Adventures. Did I tell you about last time I did acid here in the city? You know, Dave, the guy that came over the other night? This was about 7-8 years ago. Dave's like, we were at the Jude's music studio. I think you went over there. And Dave showed up one day at the studio, and he had like 4 hits of acid. He was trying to get me and this girl to eat a hit each. He ate 2 of them, and I hadn't done it over 20 years at least, 25 years. Right?
I'm a patriot of my country, and I'll stay here.
Anyway, so yeah, this girl Jody just split a hit with me, and I was so fucked up that she had to hold my hand across the street. He gave us enough for a hotel room and a half hit each, and let me borrow his car, which is completely unlike him, but he was totally high. He let me borrow his car, so we started driving around looking for parking, I guess. And you know, we were going to go to one of these cheap hotels on Mission, but we started looking for parking, couldn't find it. And at some point, I was too high to fucking drive anymore. I was too high to park. I was afraid to park, so I'm just driving around in circles going, I can't fucking park. There's no way. We ended up going to the Safeway parking lot. And luckily they didn't tow his car from there. But
wow.
Yeah, that was great. When was the last time you took LSD, man?
High school.
High school?
Yeah.
Was it platoon night?
Yeah.
Was that really your last trip?
Yeah.
Oh my God, we were so fucked up for that.
Yeah.
Remember that? Trying to put the tires back on the front of the bike. People riding by going, "You assholes!" I think they were throwing beer bottles and shit at us, weren't they? You remember that?
I don't know.
You don't remember that? You remember we were laughing so hard in platoon. There was people in the back crying, and we couldn't stop laughing. There was like vets in wheelchairs, and you could hear crying in the back, and we were laughing so hard because we were so fucked up. I mean, it was really intense. Was it not an intense movie? Yeah. Oh my God, I'm surprised we didn't get beat up that night. That was with Tawny.
Yeah.
Tawny. Did you remember Tawny before he got really big?
No.
Yeah. You do?
Yeah,
like we went to school with him, and he left to go to LA for the summer. You remember he came back and he was literally like 3 feet taller.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck happened to you, Tawny? Yeah, he was huge. That was crazy. Yeah, we were with Tawny that night. Whatever happened to him. I always wonder what happened to Chris Montez too.
He's been practicing his Ukrainian for a few weeks, and I still a little bit shocked.
That guy was so monstrously big for what, 11 years old?
Yeah.
You remember when he got hit by the car? You remember that?
No.
You don't remember? You were the one. You and Chris ran across the street. You ran across the street, and he ran after you, and a car hit him, and he rolled up and he smashed the windshield. And he rolled off the car, and the guy was all freaked out. Going, "Are you okay?" The guy couldn't believe that that Chris was only like 11 years old. He was so fucking big. He smashed the windshield and didn't even get hurt. You don't remember that?
No.
You don't? You remember getting your leg caught?
Yeah,
bike?
I remember that.
Yeah, he was
a big guy.
He was fucking giant. Yeah, I can't believe you don't remember that. You guys went to go see a movie or something, and you jaywalked across the street, and he ran after you. A car hit him, completely smashed the windshield, and didn't get a scratch on him.
Invite an accomplished poet to come and select a few of the entries to share some that stood out to them. Today we've called upon the poet. She teaches creative writing at Antioch University in Los Angeles. Her latest poetry collection is called Over. Victoria Tang, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thanks so much for having me.
You chopped that story up. You can post it, the LSD one.
Yeah.
Because there's another guy who talks about how he got megadosed, and his video was put up something like 10 years ago, but it's literally got like 10 million fucking views. Is that crazy?
And that's because they buy it.
What?
Yeah. Well, they advertised it.
He didn't monetize his channel. I saw his
But
video.
you didn't advertise that, and that's why it gets so many hits.
No, he didn't.
No?
No. He said he just recorded the story and put it up, and it got shared so many times. Him talking about getting megadosed. He was working at a Pete's Coffee, and he had no idea so many people had viewed it. And a friend of his saw the video a few years later and pointed it out to him. It was like, "You see how many views you got on that?" I was like, "What?" Like 10 million views. He just posted in the LSD stories, or YouTube. Megadose and LSD.
Yeah, let's post it.
All right.
Put some music on it and shit.